Hello everybody. So today I thought we'd do a couple geometry questions that incorporate some algebra. So question number 1 says the length and width of a rectangle have a ratio of 6 to 1. What length and width would make the perimeter 486? Okay, so to start we could just make a rectangle here. So if I know that the length to width ratio is 6 to 1, then I could have a rectangle, looks like this, with side lengths 1 and 6, right? 1 to 6 ratio. I could possibly have another one that was 2 to 12, right? What if I had one that was 5? This would have to be, well, it'll be 6 times longer, right? So 5 times 6 would get us 30. So here are a couple examples that fit this ratio, and we could continue to think of a bunch of them. We also know that the perimeter has got to be 486 centimeters. All right, which means all the way around the rectangle, width, length, have to add up to 486. So if I worked out the perimeter for this rectangle here, 30 plus 30 would get us 60, 5 and 5 is 10, 60 and 10 would get us 70 centimeters. All right, so we're way off right there. Okay, but this just gives an idea of what possible side lengths could fit this ratio. Now, let's use some algebra to figure out how we can get a perimeter of 486 without having to guess and check a whole bunch of times. All right, so let's erase this rectangle. All right, if we don't know what the side lengths are, let's assign a variable here. So if I call this side x, the side up here must be 6 times whatever this is, right? Where this was 1, 1 times 6 was 6. On our other rectangle, we had 5. 5 times 6 would get us 30, all going back to that 6 to 1 ratio. So if I know that this side is x, this side up here must be 6x, okay? So if I have this general rectangle, I want the perimeter, P, to equal 486. Well, if I write out a formula for the perimeter, we could say x plus 6x plus 6x, right? 6x plus 6x plus x plus x. If I combine like terms, let's keep going down here, 486 equals, well, 6x and 6x makes 12x plus x would be 14x. All right, I could divide both sides by 14. And I find out that x is equal to 61.7. And we're in centimeters. Now that I know that x is 61.7, x is 61.7, well then I can go back here and just plug that in, right? So this side would have to be 61.7, and that was x. So then if I know what x is, well, I can figure out what this is. I'll just put 61.7 in there for x. And 6 times 61.7, 6 times 61.7 is equal to 370.3. Okay, so let's write that into our rectangle. So this is no longer 6x. It is 370.3. All right, so that's it. Now we've got our answer. And we can make sure that that's right by going back and plugging in 61.7 and 370.3. All right, well, I can just add all these up. 61.7 plus 370.3 plus 61.7 plus 370.3. And I do, in fact, get the answer of 486 centimeters. All right, and so that covers us. We know what our length and width are. Our length is 370.3. That's the longer side, and our width is 61.7. Second question we're going to address today that also has to do with geometry says an equilateral triangle has a perimeter of 12 centimeters. What is the area of the triangle? So first off, let's just draw ourselves a equilateral triangle. Equilateral means all the sides are the same. So I know if all the sides are the same, all I'm really doing is taking this perimeter and dividing it into 3 sides. All right, so if we split that into 3 parts, we get 4 for each of the parts. 4 centimeters. Okay, so now we've got our side lengths. In order to find the area of a triangle, we have to do area is the base times the height divided by 2. Well, we need to know what the height is, and we know that the height must be perpendicular to the base. So I can kind of sketch in a height here. Right, it must form a right angle with the base. Now, when I drop this dotted line down, I essentially just cut this in half. So I know that this right here, that forms a right triangle, and this little piece has got to be half of the base. So this yellow piece down here has to be 2 centimeters. And we don't know what the height is. That's what we need to figure out. Question mark. Okay. So since we have a right triangle and we know 2 sides, we can use the Pythagorean theorem. So let's write out our Pythagorean theorem. We got a squared plus b squared equals c squared. A squared, we would say, is, remember this is 2 right there, so 2 squared. Plus, we don't know what b squared is, that's what we're trying to find, equals 4 squared, which is our longest side, or the hypotenuse. So we got 4 plus b squared equals 16. We'll subtract 4 from both sides, so b squared equals 12, and b is equal to the square root of 12. All right, so now that we know that our b right here, right, this question mark is square root of 12, well, now I can go back up and just use my area formula. All right, let me divide this here so we don't get caught up. Okay. All right, so we've got area is what we're looking for. We know that our base, the base of the whole triangle there, is 4. We said the height was the square root of 12, right, or b, right, this question mark right there, square root of 12. We divide that all by 2. So we can plug that into a calculator. We find that the area is equal to 6.9. That would be centimeters squared. If you're looking for a non-decimal form, like an exact answer, where you're not using a calculator, well, we can just go ahead and divide, let's use green. 4 divided by 2 is 2. We can leave that root 12, so we'd have 2 square root 12. We won't get into how this works. You might have seen this already before, but you can simplify that square root of 12 into 2 times 2 root 3. So our answer would be 4 root 3. And both of these would be acceptable answers. Right? They're exactly the same. This is just rounded right here. All right, so to recap, we knew an equilateral triangle meant that we had, let me use a different color here. So we'll use pink. All right, so we knew an equilateral triangle had all the same sides. So we had 4, 4, and 4. Since we knew 2 sides, right, we knew 4, and when we dropped this down here, we created a right triangle, and we know that that splits this into 2 equal parts, which changed this side here to 2, right, we cut 4 in half. Once we knew 2 sides of that pink or yellow triangle in there, we could use the Pythagorean theorem to figure out what our missing side was, which was the height. Once we found the height here, then we could go back to our area formula, plug in what we knew what the base was, right? And again, going back, we had the base of that whole triangle, right? So we're back to the whole side. So we got the base, we knew the height from using our Pythagorean theorem, and then we just plugged into a calculator to get 6.9. We also could reduce the roots and get an exact answer here. But again, both of these are the same. It just depends what your teacher's looking for. All right, let me know if you have any questions. Hope you enjoy the rest of your week. Thanks.